And we are live, MLB DFS strategy show. It is Thursday, September 10th. We've got a 6-gamer ahead of us tonight. And lucky for us, FanDuel and DraftKings both locking at the same time. We don't have to worry about extra games on either site, so we can just talk about it. I'm Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. And I hope you had the Braves yesterday, everybody, because they put up quite a few runs. Adam, what's going on?
Yeah, how's it going? Excited for, first day of football. We got basketball, we got baseball. It should be a really fun day.
Yeah, Lakers, Rockets tonight, Texans, Chiefs tonight. I dropped a showdown video already this morning, so been productive thus far.
Yes, I have a lot of work to do between now and then, but by the end of it, it should be fun.
Yeah, you and I were talking yesterday. I was working on my showdown model unsuccessfully for the better part of like 2.5 hours because of my own personal stupidity. Finally came through the other side, but it drained me. Now all I want to do is just watch this game. So I have very concentrated ownership so far in showdown. I'm fully expecting this game to be like 7-3 now, just to irritate me.
Well, everyone has concentrated ownership in showdown, right?
That's not what I mean. Like a concentrated player pool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, not like everybody's high. Not like everybody's ownership number.
Now it's going to be low scoring.
No. Concentrated player pool. And then I'm just fully and not on the defensive side of the ball. Like both defenses not getting a lot of play for me. Showed up really low in the sim. Fully expecting those somehow both defenses being optimal. Yeah. Just to ruin.
And I wasn't really making fun of you because when I play basketball showdown, all the time, I'm like, damn, I stacked a really low scoring game. And then it's like, oh wait, so did everybody else.
Fair. Well, also you should probably just make fun of me anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you didn't have the Braves yesterday and you were playing DFS, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you don't have money coming out of that slate. You don't see that one every day. 29 runs from Atlanta, the second most in baseball since 1900.
You know who had the most?
The Atlanta Braves.
Texas Rangers against the Orioles.
Oh, yeah. That was, when was that? A couple years ago?
It was before their playoff runs, so it was probably like 2010.
Okay. I can vaguely remember it, but
30-3.
I can't make it sound like I actually know that I remember it. That's just wild. That's so much scoring. I'm pulling up the box score now just to go through it.
It was 2007.
Okay. Well, what do we know?
So it was, I know Buck Showalter was the manager, and I know it was before the Orioles started making the playoffs.
29 runs, 11 in the second inning, 2 in the third, 3 in the fourth, 6 in the fifth, 3 in the sixth, and 4 in the seventh. 29 runs on 23 hits. Just bonkers. Acuna 3 for 4. Freddie Freeman 3 for 6 with 6 RBI. Acuna had 5, by the way. Darno 2 for 7. Swanson 3 for 4. Austin Riley 2 for 4. Duvall 3 for 4 with 9 RBI. Albies 3 for 6. Enciarte 2 for 5. Can you imagine if you had you went 0 for 6 in that game?
That would be it's when I was in high school, we played some really shitty baseball team, and we scored, I don't know, 30 runs in the first 3 innings or something. But our leadoff hitter, who ended up being drafted and was the best player, it's I remember one inning he made the first and second out of the inning, and I think he was on deck when we made the third out, so it became really close.
Oh man, if you do that in a major league game, I assume you have to buy dinner or something for the clubhouse. It's so bad. I'd feel bad if that happened to Albies since he's still broke. But neither here nor there. Oh, God. I didn't even look at the pitching lines because, oh, wow. Okay. So have you seen the pitching lines for yesterday?
No.
Well, they let Jordan Yamamoto eat one.
Okay. Well, I'll say I know Pablo Lopez ended up -11. That looked really good in my lineup.
I can't imagine this one's any better. So Pablo Lopez, 1 2/3, 4 hits allowed, 7 runs, 4 walks, and 2 Ks, 1 home run. Here's the Jordan Yamamoto line. Buckle up. 2 2/3 innings, 11 hits, 13 runs, 12 earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks, and 4 home runs.
He deserves that after how unreasonably good he was last year for absolutely no reason.
I need to look up how many fantasy points he got. 12 runs and 4 dongs is that's gonna sting.
Like especially in a 60-game season, like his ERA is just wrecked.
Unrecoverable. All right. Unselect. Can you even pick him? Did he get rostered? Is there a way to see his
Well, he was a relief pitcher, so
I didn't know if he was like set to be a long man or anything. I didn't know if like lineup study would even show him. Doesn't appear that they do.
I'm pulling up on TapMuse.
Okay. I guess I don't know.
That's a negative 19.8.
He threw 94 pitches.
So the first 2 pitchers for the Marlins yesterday combined for negative 30.9.
Oi. That's not great. That is not great. So he recorded 8 outs and gave up 4 home runs. That's a new one. That's a new one. The only pitcher for the Marlins that didn't give up a run was Ryan Stanek, pitched a clean, I assume, 8th. That is brutal. Yamamoto's ERA now 18.26. Not good. Not good. To give up 20 runs combined in 4 1/3. Hope you stack the Braves. That's all that I can say. But we need to move on to today's slate, and we do need to shout out Yahoo Sports for being the presenting sponsor of this show. We'll talk a little bit about them as we get moving. But first, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. You don't want to miss it. Every sport is in effect right now. Baseball, basketball, NFL. The mainstays of the DFS industry are all happening at the same time, which is unprecedented and kind of wild. I don't know what to do. There's new stuff to do every single day. It's kind of fun. Are you excited for the NFL?
Yeah, very.
Okay. Like, what is your least favorite sport of the 3?
To watch?
Just to do anything, I guess. Like for DFS purposes. Not necessarily like what's your most profitable. Like what would be your main focus?
For DFS, I would say baseball is my least favorite.
Okay.
I enjoy it still, but I prefer just playing DFS basketball and football. As far as like the actual sports go, NFL is my least favorite.
Okay. Fair enough.
NFL just, it's like the one sport still where you're playing DFS against people that don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah. So me, it's just the NFL is just such an odd grind because of how long it takes for you to get to another slate. That week-long break is, man, it feels so great. You want the next slate to be Monday if you win. You want the next slate to be Monday if you lose. But that week feels like a year.
It's going to be even worse this year because you're not going to have basketball to grind every day.
Oh, I know. And I don't even know when that's going to come back. That's the worst part. I don't know if we see basketball in December, January, February, next September. Who the hell knows? Not good. Not good. But this isn't a basketball show. This isn't an NFL show. This is the MLB strategy show. So we are going to dive in right now with the Miami Marlins and the Philadelphia Phillies. Marlins staggered a bit from yesterday, but Phillies just slight favorites. This is a coin flip game. My boy, Sandy Alcantara going for the Marlins. Jake Arrieta going for the Phils. Arrieta picking up a little bit of love. 15% owned on DraftKings, 3% owned on FanDuel. Not much for Alcantara, if you would like to say it like that. You have any interest in the pitching in this game?
Not really. I mean, both pitchers are relatively inexpensive, especially for only a 6-game slate. Obviously, the Phillies' offense is good. Alcantara is not a high strikeout guy. Neither is Arrieta. He does get a little bit better matchup going against Miami, but it's not like this is a terrible Miami lineup. They did add Starling Marte to it. Dickerson is fine. Aguilar is fine. Anderson's fine. Like it's not a lineup that is going to just roll over and die. And Arrieta, the strikeout stuff has basically just disappeared. For this season, he's at 20% against righties, 15.9 against lefties. Lefties are hitting for a lot more power with a 224 ISO. So I think that, you would, like a 3K Corey Dickerson looks pretty good. $2,100 Matt Joyce, if he's in the middle of that lineup, is a good value. But overall, I don't really think I end up getting the pitching here.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I don't mind Arrieta. We have Bumgarner right above him, $400 more expensive. That's a potential way to go. There's not a lot to pay down for Josh Fleming picking up a little bit of ownership. We'll dig into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the argument. Like, I would rather roster Arrieta than Bumgarner.
Even at that ownership?
I don't have the ownership in front of me, but
Bumgarner unowned, Arrieta 15.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Bumgarner's been hurt, but also facing the Dodgers, also just not good.
Fair. Let's talk bats then. Marlins actually getting a little bit of love, 10% aggregate ownership. Phillies, similar story, 12% aggregate ownership. Marlins are kind of getting there just because they are a value. Phillies are getting there because they have McCutchen, Hoskins, Harper, and Realmuto at the top of their lineup, which are actual major league hitters. Do you have a preference for bats in this game?
I think the left-handed value for the Marlins, I kind of touched on it when we talked about Arrieta, but Dickerson has pop from the left side. He's really cheap. Matt Joyce, if he's in there, you do have some pinch hit risk with Joyce. I would assume that when they get into the bullpen, if the Phillies bring in a lefty, that Joyce leaves the game. But pay attention to where he is in the lineup, because if he's sandwiched between like Marte, Aguilar, Anderson, and Cooper, it's going to be really for them to bring in a lefty, since you have to face 3 hitters minimum now. So that's something to kind of just keep in mind when you're looking at Joyce and trying to weight the pinch hit risks. But both of those guys look like good values. On the other side, you're looking more, I think, at full stacks for Philly, because they actually are a good offense. The pricing is affordable. McCutchen's really cheap. Didi's sub 4K. And then, even Harper's not that expensive at 5,200.
Yeah, I think Philly's going a little underrepresented. They have the 5th highest odds of being the top stack in Alex's tool, but there's not much separating 2nd from 5th. And they're just a hair behind 4th. Now, they do have the 3rd most ownership in that group, but they're also an incredible value, a much better value than San Diego or the Yankees are projecting, who are slightly higher. So I'm actually surprised that they aren't getting ranked a little bit higher. They are 4th for me. I don't have much interest in the Marlins side outside of more like cash game scenarios for Corey Dickerson. The top of the Phillies lineup, even though the ownership is already there, looks good. The bottom is less than stellar. But if I'm going anywhere, it's probably Philly. And I think that they probably show up a little bit more in crunches, just given their value. I think it would push down the Yankees and Padres, at least based on Alex's top stack odds. Do you have any favorite bats in this game? Like the first couple guys you're keying on?
Dickerson, and then, McCutchen for value, Harper just for points.
Yeah, Harper, clearly the top projected fantasy point player in this game. And if you come up with a different outcome, I'd be very, very surprised. Nobody getting crazy. Dickerson at 24% ownership seems reasonable given his price and his spot in the order. Nothing really out of whack here. Dickerson and Marte on FanDuel are the only 2 guys from the Marlins in double digits in ownership, just around 20%. Is there anything else to touch on in this game? There are so many games with an implied total north of 5, or teams with an implied total north of 5. These guys are just like chilling in the mid 4s. It's just not that appealing of a game.
Yeah.
If this were in Philly, it would be better.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, Marlins Park, for those that don't know, a little bit of a pitcher's park. So not going to be a place where you're going to find a ton of offense. And I don't really find the pitching to be all that interesting. So might as well treat this one like a 5-gamer. All righty. Rays and Red Sox. Boop. Fixing the ticker. Oh, things are good. Rays and Red Sox. Rays 5.2 run implied total. Red Sox 3.9. 63% chance to win for Tampa. Josh Fleming going for Tampa. Mike Kickham going for the Red Sox. Fleming at 18% ownership. So let's just start there. Is that the guy you want to use if you're paying down?
Yeah, I think it's fine. The problem is that, he is getting some ownership, and I don't expect him to go particularly deep into this game. He's gone 5 1/3, and 5 innings pitched. He's thrown 72, 74, and 73 pitches. I think it's pretty obvious what Tampa's looking for from him. And if he pitches well, you're probably getting like 5 innings. So the ceiling is relatively limited, but he is pretty inexpensive. Boston is pretty bad. It is a good pitcher's park. Obviously limited options with there only being 12 pitchers going in general. So he's fine. It's not, I wouldn't say he's under-owned, but I do think he's a pretty good value. Looking at his minor league, so he's 24, former 5th round pick. Not great minor league numbers in terms of strikeouts, striking out between 6.5 and 7 hitters per nine. Steamer projects him for 5.9 strikeouts per nine in the majors. So, I mean, it's not someone you're getting excited about. It's kind of just he fits into your lineup if you need to go value.
13% K rate from Steamer is less than ideal.
Yeah, it's not great.
No, not so much. I just don't like. How deep do you think he goes in this game?
5 innings.
Okay. But it's probably like the only guy that can stand out then if you're trying to pay down and assume. I mean, you're like, if you're going to him, you know where you're going with your other pitcher. It's either Cole or Sonny Gray.
Yeah, I just don't know.
It should be Cole.
I don't think you're going to need to pay down that much because pricing's just been so soft on hitters that even if the stack you're going to is relatively expensive, you're going to be able to find like 2 to 3K hitters that aren't terrible, like Matt Joyce or like Corey Dickerson. There's just so many of them right now on like every slate for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's why like I don't know if he were like 4K, I think this would be a different scenario, but at 5,900, I don't think you're getting enough savings. I don't have the need to go down that far for a guy that I don't think is particularly good at the things that get you fantasy points. And from a bats perspective in this game, it's not, I assume you're not rostering Mike Kickham in any formats. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Tampa, number 2 stack from Alex in the top stack odds, largely because of their value. Only 2 guys north of 4K in the projected lineup. So they are second in top stack odds. They are third, or essentially tied for second in ownership share, but they are projected to be the top value play of the slate. 17.8% of the time, the Rays will be the top value. How do you want to manage the Rays? They seem to be like neutrally owned, but very easy to get into lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're clearly good values. They're in a good spot against Kickham. The only real negative is the park, but still a 5.3 implied run total in Tampa Bay obviously is nice. It'll depend a lot on ownership because they are projected to get a good amount of ownership right now. But I do think they're good values, especially if you have Margot and Arozarena in the top 2 spots. They're both cheap. Mike Brosseau probably hitting cleanup looks pretty solid here. So yeah, a lot's going to depend on ownership. I do want to keep an eye on Hunter Renfroe, who may be hitting kind of towards the bottom of the order, but obviously does have a ton of power upside. Only 3,300 on DraftKings looks really, really good.
Joey Wendell, second, third base eligibility, 3,100, 20% ownership in our current run. That's a pretty big number for a guy in the 6 hole.
Yeah, especially lefty to start the game.
Yeah, anxious to see if that changes at all. For the Red Sox bats, Boston coming in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the top stack odds, coming up a little over-owned. I mean, I think this is just like a tale of 2 sets of bats. If you want to get to Verdugo, Devers, Bogarts, or JD Martinez, you're rostering real players. If you want to get anybody below that, I'm not all that enamored with anything from Boston. Do you feel differently about the Sox?
No, that sums it up. It's in the limited sample of Josh Fleming that we have. It's probably worth pointing out that he's struck out 36% of lefties, 14% of righties. Very, very limited sample, particularly for the lefties. He has given up a 234 ISO to righties.
I can't believe Boston's like tanking this year.
Yeah, it's weird. Like the Orioles are still kind of making a playoff push too.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the playoff odds in a while. I assume it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know how they look. I just know every time I watch an Orioles game, they mention that they're only a couple games out.
I bet their percentage of making the playoffs is like non-existent, but like that, the math, you can say the math differently.
Yeah, but I think also Vegas had them at like 20 wins or something for the season. So
9.4% odds to make the playoffs per FanGraphs right now.
So coming into the season, if you said on September 10th, the Orioles had a 10% chance of making the playoffs, that would have been like ridiculous.
Yeah. I'm not saying that like it hasn't gotten better or anything. It's AL. The AL is essentially locked down. Rays. Yeah, these are all, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here are 8 teams north of 90%. Rays, Yankees, Blue Jays, Twins, Indians, White Sox, A's, and Astros, all 90% or higher to make the playoffs. Apparently the AL is just done. What do we have on the NL side? All right, way more ambiguity on the NL side. Braves and Phillies essentially in. Cubs essentially in, Dodgers and Padres in, Giants at 73%, Cardinals at 77%, and then you get Mets and Marlins in the 30s, Reds at 26, Rockies at 18. So the random number generator is going strong in the NL side. All right, favorite bats in the Rays Red Sox game.
JD, he also gives you some leverage, which is nice. On the other side, I mentioned Renfroe as potentially a lower owned guy that has a lot of power. At the top, if Margot is leading off, he looks like a good value.
Yeah, right now on the Red Sox, JD, the bat that stands out the most. On the Rays side, Margot Arozarena. Did I say that correctly?
I believe so.
Okay. Here, if I covered up everybody's first name, how long would it take you to land on Randy for him?
If I didn't already know it?
Yeah.
Infinite guesses.
Yeah. Never would I land on Randy. Randy's a good name for a dog. Anyway, Yankees and Orioles, game 3 on the slate. Yankees 5.2 run implied total. Orioles 3.4. 70% chance to win for the Yanks. That's the highest number on the slate. Garrett Cole going for the Yankees. Keegan Aiken going for the Orioles. No ownership going to Aiken. Cole 52% owned on FanDuel and 69% owned on DraftKings.
Yeah, still nothing really negative to say about that. With this particular slate, you're like, what are you doing if you're not rostering Cole? Obviously you can go to Gray, you can go to Paddock, who's had plenty of issues this year, but the guys with comparable upside is just so limited. It's basically Gray. So when you combine that with there being cheap bats on the slate and on DraftKings having to roster 2 pitchers, I really don't want to get away from it.
Yeah, he's very clearly the best option on the slate. Public ownership is there. Public ownership should be there. I don't think there's much else to say. It's Garrett Cole first and foremost. Is there anything we should glean from 70% ownership on DraftKings? Because that gets you start to get to a point where, like, what is there an upper bound for you or for anyone really when you're a top priced pitcher where it's just sort of like, is there a too high for Garrett Cole today?
I don't really think so. I mean, it also depends what tournaments you're talking about. Like if you're talking about, playing a 30,000 person tournament on a 6-game slate, there's a lot more of an argument for getting away from Cole and just playing the Orioles. And, if you do that 1,000 times, you're going to win enough slates that you make money. But in smaller field stuff, I really don't think so. Like I'd be very surprised if I don't end up with Cole in all 3 or 4 of my main lineups. It's different too if there's more guys on the slate. Like even if they don't project as well, if say you have Cole, Gray, and then throw in 1 or 2 really good pitchers in a tough matchup or something like that, then it's different because you can say, okay, like Cole's not going to beat them 90% of the time. But you just don't have that here. Like if you don't go to Cole, you still have to roster someone. So, you're either going Paddock or you're going to some like just absolute garbage pitcher in addition to Gray. So it's really difficult to justify on this slate, I think. I mean, I guess Dustin May, not a garbage pitcher, but not a good strikeout pitcher. So from a DFS standpoint, kind of garbage.
Yeah, like I assume that there's a crowd that immediately sees that and thinks I'm going to go the other direction. The larger the field, the more that makes sense, right?
The flip side to that is in your smaller field tournaments, Cole's going to be like 85% owned, and your large field tournaments will be like 65.
Also true. There's this constant push and pull of ownership based on the size of your contest and the buy-in of your contest, and understanding that relationship and how that moves is pivotal. We give ownership projections for what is essentially like the mid-tier 150 max. So I don't know what it is off the top of my head on DraftKings, somewhere in like the $8 to $15 range, I'm assuming.
It's typically 15 to 20.
Okay. I haven't been in that range in a hot minute. But you're going to see the relationship of ownership change, whether you go lower or higher, whether you change the field. Understanding that relationship is massive for you. Otherwise, you can be making decisions that seem optimal on the surface, but you're actually kind of making a mistake a little bit. So be aware of what you're getting into, especially in situations when you have a pitcher like Cole that's projected for 70% ownership.
It's a balancing act too, because you have to keep in mind really what you're talking about. And if you're playing in a 30,000 person tournament and 70% of the field has someone, it's just a ton of raw lineups that have Cole. If you're playing a 300 person tournament and 85% of the field has him, yes, it's a higher percentage of the field, but you're still competing with, 200 lineups or whatever, 250 lineups.
Like if you have Cole, you might not want the Dodgers today.
Right.
Any Aiken?
No. He did look good his last time out, but no.
I would rather have Clay Aiken.
I'm sure you would.
I walked right into that. Here I was thinking I was just making a joke. Yankees, third highest top stack odds on DK. Ownership share just slightly higher than that. They grade out as my number 2. Like I said, 2 through 5 in Alex's top stack odds are all very similar. I don't know why you're smirking, but I assume it's still the Clay Aiken joke. So
yeah.
Great. How do you feel about the Yankees today?
Good. I mean, they're going to be popular, I would assume, for good reason. Right now, we have them with the second highest aggregate ownership, third highest top stack percentage. Like that all makes sense. Keegan Aiken posts, decent minor league numbers. He's kind of a middling prospect for the Orioles. I don't expect him to be, absolute garbage, but I don't think he's a major league starting pitcher long term either. So it is a pretty good matchup there. Obviously, a bit of a watered down lineup with no Judge, but other than that, I mean, you still have plenty of power here with Voit, Hicks, Frazier, Torres is back. Sanchez is terrible, but also still has power. DJ LeMahieu's obviously just a good all-around hitter. So it's still a very formidable lineup for the Yankees.
Are you stacking any better? Are you grabbing bats from the Orioles against Cole?
I don't think so. I mean, if for some reason I end up without a Cole lineup, I think $2,100 for DJ Stewart is probably too cheap, considering Cole does give up power. DJ Stewart has it, and he's really, really cheap. Mountcastle's underpriced for his talent level as well. But like I said, I expected my main stuff to just have Garrett Cole. So
we do need to touch on this. Weather looking kind of rough for this game, which would be obviously massive. We would lose the clear top projected pitcher for the slate and the second most owned hitting stack. I'm assuming we're on the same page here that Sonny Gray and Chris Paddock's ownership goes absolutely through the roof if we lose this game. Any thoughts as to how this impacts the rest of the slate if we lose it?
This game is probably like the one that you would least like to lose, just from a kind of integrity of the slate standpoint, like making it so everyone's not playing the exact same lineup. But I mean, Gray would just become the clear top pitcher. You would get more ownership going to like Alzolay from the Cubs, probably. Right now he's at like 2%. I think you would get some ownership shifting there just for a mid-range option. You would get a lot more ownership going to the Dodgers bats than they're already getting. Any expensive stack would get a little bit more ownership because you're taking Garrett Cole's 10K off the board and people are going to spend close to the full salary. So it would change a lot. It would push a lot more ownership to the spots that are already getting it.
Yeah. If we were to break down this slate by removing Yankees Orioles, everything we say would end up being like wildly different. There's so much ownership coming to the Yankees and to Cole that it would change the entire structure of the slate.
I think the slate would just become will become a lot more ownership dependent because your highest projected lineups are just going to be so popular if this game's taken out.
Yeah. I don't really have many Orioles bats to recommend against Garrett Cole. That seems like a death sentence. If I'm recommending anybody from the Yankees, my favorite bat would be Gary Sanchez, $4,700 catcher. Ownership is already there. If I'm trying to get a little bit different from the ownership, Aaron Hicks, probably 4K outfielder.
Yep.
Just keep a close eye on the weather, guys, because that's going to do everything for you. Now, I want to shout out the presenting sponsor of this show, Yahoo Sports. Only place you can become a baller. First and foremost, that should be the thing that you pay attention to most. You can get up to $30 in YSRPs if you use the promo code Awesemo when signing up. You're going to get contests that have lower management fees, sometimes no management fees. They're generally running a no management fee contest every single day. That'll be the best contest you'll find in the industry. You cannot beat a contest where they're not taking anything off of the top. That's massive. It should really help your bankroll. It should really help you to build your bankroll. That is why I think you should start at Yahoo. Should find some softer competition. You can get your feet wet in the industry. So go to Yahoo, Use the promo code Awesemo and get those YSRPs, Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And if you want some free content from Awesemo.com, today's your lucky day. The MLB Lineup Builder, free for you today. The PGA Lineup Builder, free for you today. And I just realized that I didn't set a PGA lineup, and that locked 32 minutes ago.
Yes, it did. I set 3. I'm sure I'll be jealous of you in about an hour.
I assume that I have a message in a Discord calling me all sorts of names. So, fantastic. But the PGA Lineup Builder is free, or was free today, if you want to check that out. So MLB Lineup Builder, PGA Lineup Builder, and for the single game tonight, NBA projections are free tonight. Lakers and Rockets, only a one-gamer since the Bucks went home, even though the Bucks have Giannis, and he's incredible and better than Luka, but that's not a path that you and I want to go down on this particular slate. Which is funny. It's delayed an hour due to fog. Oh, golf is delayed an hour due to fog. Did they push lock back an hour? Because that'd be great.
I can let you know in a second.
I could let you know in a second. Otherwise, we're going to
take did not. My lineups are live.
I don't even think I set a dummy. That's the worst part. Well, still tied for first with failed to draft in time.
Did you enter stuff?
Just like a generic contest with a group of people. I didn't actually play the slate. I'm not hemorrhaging anything other than a minimal amount.
Pride.
Yes, pride. No pride for me. Bobby Boom has won it the last 2 weeks, so shout out to him. Missed that guy. Actually, it's NFL season. He should be.
Yeah, he should be back.
He should be back in Slack shortly, burning it all down to the ground. Cubs and Reds. Cubs 4 unimplied total. Reds 4.5. I actually don't know if that's true. Did we get a Cubs total yet? Wind looked like it was blowing in pretty aggressively. We didn't have the line when I first built out the sheet.
So one spot I'm looking at, it looks like a 7 total. I'm pulling up something else now.
Yeah, I'm seeing 7 as well. That is way more than I gave it credit for. I gave it 8.5 this morning. We'll drop that to 7. And now we'll say Cubs 3.3 run implied total. Reds 3.7. Alzolay against Adam's boy, Sonny Gray, who is only 9,600, which is clearly the correct price tag and definitely shouldn't be over 10K. Sonny Gray, 47% owned. He's 25% owned on FanDuel. These numbers will go up massively if we lose the Yankees-Orioles game. But talk to me about how you feel about Sonny Gray against the Cubs in what appears to be a fantastic weather opportunity in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good about it. It seems like the wind's blowing in. The temperatures are pretty cool. Both of those things obviously play well for him. Second highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind Garrett Cole. So whether Cole's on the slate or not, you're talking about the second highest upside pitcher. The only real negative for Gray is his walk percentage. He can get into some trouble there. He can, rack up his pitch count that way as well. But other than that, not really concerned. I think the price tag is perfectly fine. No real problems with Gray. If you asked me if I would rather stack the Cubs or stack the Orioles, I would probably say the Cubs. But it's just kind of relative to going against Cole, not any kind of indictment on Gray.
I wish I could ask Connie Mack what the weather impact will be on this game, but unfortunately that information is probably not all that relevant.
What?
I'll explain it to you later. Cubs have the lowest top stack odds for today's slate per Alex, but they are also getting absolutely zero ownership. Is there any appeal to stacking the Cubs today?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it before, like with ownership being concentrated on this slate, if Cole's on it, Gray's still getting ownership. If Cole's off of it, Gray's getting a ton. If you're looking to leverage against one of the 2 highest owned pitchers, I think you probably have a higher chance of success going against Gray than going against Cole. Yeah. Cole typically strikes out guys and gives up home runs, so seems more like someone that I would be looking maybe to take a one-off against or mini stack against. Gray, when he gets in trouble, walks a lot of guys, puts guys on base, can get out of the game early if his pitch count gets up. So I would lean towards the Cubs from a full stack standpoint. But, again, it's just not a spot that I think is that likely.
Yeah, 3% odds of being the top stack is, we're talking about a 1 in 33 outcome for those sorts of odds. That's, once a month you're going to hit on a spot like this with a Cubs team and a 3.3 run implied total, but you do gain a little bit from Sonny Gray's ownership, and at least the Cubs lineup is filled with, like real major league hitters. What about the Reds here? So they're coming in middle of the pack in top stack odds. They are actually showing quite a bit of leverage, only 5% ownership share, decent value. It's not going to be a great offensive environment, but is this a spot where you can get a little bit over the field just because no one's there?
I think I'm actually more interested in Alzolay.
Okay, talk to me about it. Unowned.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why. I mean, he's got good strikeout stuff. He only went 2 2/3 innings on the fifth, but he threw 78 pitches, so he's relatively stretched out. I'm pulling up his minor league numbers now, but I remember from last year being interested in him when he came up. He struck out a lot of guys. So 15 starts at AAA last year, 65 1/3 innings pitched, struck out 32.3% of hitters, walked 11%. So far in the limited time this year, 31.5% strikeout percentage, 18.5% walk percentage. Like he's a really volatile guy. There's a good chance that he doesn't go very deep because he blows up his pitch count and all that. But we'd already kind of talked about the mid-range on this slate being very unappealing in terms of guys that actually have strikeout ability. And Alzolay does have that. He's not getting ownership. He's priced at a point where he's not really in the same price range as guys like Arrieta and Fleming, but in the context of the slate and being able to fit him into lineups, I don't think it'll make a huge difference. Like I don't think you're gonna have to sacrifice a ton to get to him. So if his ownership does stay as low as it is, I like taking a chance on someone with actual strikeout upside as opposed to rostering two guys in Arrieta and Fleming that the field is basically just banking on getting balls at people.
What's your expectation for how deep he goes?
I think he goes, like, if he pitches well, like 5 innings.
Okay.
It's pretty similar to Fleming for me.
Yeah, if he can get even past the fourth, I think he's probably going underrepresented for what you can get, especially given how good of a spot this should be with the wind blowing in Wrigley. Are there any bats that stand out to you individually? Only Eugenio Suarez is in double digits on DraftKings. Votto, Castellanos, Suarez, and Moose Tacos are all in double digits on FanDuel. Chris Bryant as well.
Nothing really. I think the red side is more appealing than the Cubs side. The pricing isn't that favorable. Jesse Winker at 3,900 for the Reds is probably the top value there. But overall, the hitting conditions are just so shitty that unless you're just getting really low ownership, I don't really see it.
Nah, we're on the same page here. It's really difficult to recommend any individual bats. So let's keep it moving. Padres and Giants. Padres 5.2 run implied total. Giants 3.8. It's a good thing that this game is not in San Francisco. Have you seen the skies in San Francisco right now?
Yeah, pretty crazy. That's what I don't know if that's. I guess you said golf was delayed by fog, not by that. But
oh yeah, they're in
Napa.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching a video yesterday of people at the Embarcadero, just glowing orange sky.
Yeah,
terrifying. Looked like it looked like an Instagram filter.
Yeah, I saw someone post that they had to use like their actual camera, not their phone, because their phone kept like correcting the color.
That's craziness. Yeah, it's just full orange. It looks like the color of the orange on a Giants uniform.
Yeah, it's like a Browns orange.
Yeah, that'll work. Which is such a weird sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, Padres and Giants. Again, Chris Paddock going for the Pods. Trevor Cahill going for the Giants. 12% ownership for Paddock on FanDuel, 34 on DraftKings. So I guess my first question to you would be this. Do you prefer Gray or Paddock?
Gray.
Okay.
Especially with...
Why would I ask you?
Right. I mean, I am a pretty big Paddock guy too, but not in the same way that I'm with Gray. Yeah, I mean, with the ownership how it is, I would say Gray. If you get to where it's 50% Gray and 20% Paddock or something, it starts to become a different conversation. But as is right now, I would rather get to Gray.
So would your ideal pairing be Cole Gray?
Yep.
Okay. You don't think that there's any problems there from a salary perspective? You think you can get that pretty easily? Yeah,
I think it should be fine. I mean, if you start with Cole and Gray on DraftKings, you're still averaging $3,762 per player. Grab like one minimum salary guy and you're at 4K.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be easy enough.
No, not at all. We figure in what, like 60% if we lose that Yankees game on Paddock? Probably. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you probably get to what, like 70, 60 or something on Gray and Paddock.
Yeah, I could see Paddock even becoming a little bit more. Well, you're probably not going to need the extra salary, so it's probably still going to be Sonny Gray. Padres 4th in the top stack odds, like 7th or 8th in the ownership share. Not the best value in the world. A lot of money at the top end, but they are showing significantly higher top stack odds compared to their ownership share. How do you want to manage the Padres here against Cahill?
I think that it's a good spot. Cahill, obviously, when he's on, has some pretty nasty stuff. He can get some swings and misses, but he's not really on all that often. The Padres are obviously really good. Cahill's strikeout stuff so far this year has been good. 26% against lefties, 31% against righties. His one big thing with him is his walk percentage. So far this season, that's the wrong page. He's at, where is he? Is he not listed on FanGraphs? Okay, so I need to pull up his actual page. But in general, you're going to get just such high upside from the Padres. So far this year, 15.3% walk percentage, 27.8% strikeout percentage for Cahill. Kind of just more of the same. When he's on, he's really tough to hit, but when he's off, he's putting a lot of guys on base. You can get him out of the game pretty quickly, and you do have a implied run total north of 5 for the Padres. Not the most favorable pricing, but as far as the whole stack goes, it's still not crazy expensive because you have Tatis, you have Machado that are really expensive, but then you have Moreland at 3,900, Myers at 41, Cronenworth at 41. You have guys that can kind of balance this stack out.
God, the bottom is just so much different than the top. It's craziness. Yeah. Tatis at 6K, man. What a world.
And always popular because shortstop's never that good.
Yeah. I wouldn't Tatis and Machado for 11-7 combined, and I don't even think it's too crazy. Although I think Machado is slightly overowned.
Yeah. So the thing, if you go Cole, Gray, Machado, Tatis, you still have a little over 3K per hitter to spend, and with how many just dirt cheap guys there are, I don't think that even ends up being that difficult.
Would you even want to though? If you're already getting Cole, Gray, is getting to a 22% owned Tatis even something you want?
Probably not all that often, but it depends what I'm doing with the rest of my lineup. If I happen to be stacking, I don't know, some 5% on the team, then I don't really care.
Save $700, just grab Corey Seager.
I was thinking Torres, but yeah.
Let me look at it. Yeah, that works too. Corey Seager was in between Tatis and Torres in that spot. Or go to Josh Rojas for $2,900.
Yeah, same upside.
Sure, very similar players. On the Giants side, they rank 10th for me. They're not getting any ownership outside of Brandon Belt at 7%. Are you trying to get to any Giant stacks on the opposite side of Paddock or any individual Giants bats that stand out to you?
I think if I'm looking to leverage against the field, I'd rather go to the Giants than the Orioles or the Cubs. So I will say that. Paddock has certainly had his share of issues this year. He's still a good pitcher. But against lefties in particular, he struggled with the 19.5% strikeout percentage, 245 ISO allowed, backed up by a 248 expected ISO. Against righties, he's striking out 30%, but giving up a bunch of power to them as well. You should have, Yastrzemski, Dickerson, Belt, all in the lineup as left-handed power bats, getting out of San Francisco where their power numbers should play a bit better. From the right side, you're kind of left wanting, but you also get a cheap catcher option in Joey Bart, who's one of their top prospects. I think that, in the context of the slate, the Giants still aren't that appealing of a stack, but relative to the Orioles and the Cubs, I would much rather go to the Giants than go to them.
Giants, 5% chance of being the top stack, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically tied for 7th. But only a 1.4% ownership share, the least owned of all of the teams at that 5% spot. So if you are trying to get a little bit different, that looks to be the lottery ticket you're looking for. And you do gain a little bit of ability to get on the opposite side of that Chris Paddock ownership. It's not going to happen all that often, but I think that is sort of a weird spot that's okay. Ooh. 1 in 20. 1 in 20. That's all that matters.
I would guess right now, and obviously I haven't done it, but when I make I would guess that one of my 3 max lineup is a Giant stack.
All righty. Well, Lots of good take. It's good information. Hit that like button if you're here. There are 111 of you, 25 likes. Yeah, hit that thumbs up, please.
Based on the numbers now, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, don't hold me to that. But just, kind of glancing at the numbers and knowing how my lineups end up getting made, I would guess that one of my three right now would be a Giants then.
Final game, Diamondbacks and Dodgers, 3.9 run implied total for the D-backs, 5.6 for the Dodgers. Madison Bumgarner and Dustin May, neither guy getting any ownership. The question is, should they?
May not getting ownership is kind of interesting because he is a talented pitcher. He obviously gets a lot of ground balls. He's got really good stuff. It just has never translated into great strikeout stuff so far throughout the minors or the majors. So that's the concern. But if he's not getting ownership, you can kind of limit your concern a little bit because obviously in any one game he can get strikeouts. The range of outcomes for him isn't drastically different than it is for Chris Paddock, being a lot more ownership at that price range. So he does kind of make sense as a pivot there in tournaments just based on talent. But if he does start to get ownership, I'd back off pretty quickly. As far as Bumgarner goes, I'm really just not interested. He obviously missed a bunch of time with injury and now just gets a terrible matchup against the Dodgers. He threw 72 pitches in his first game back against the Giants. Just brutal matchup. Pitcher that I don't think has been very good for a while. He's always just benefited from pitching in San Francisco, which clearly isn't the case anymore. So not really on Bumgarner.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing much of anything here. May standing out in the top pitchers tool. 12.9% chance of being the top pitcher, only a 2% ownership share. So if you're trying to get different in a large field, I think May stands out. Diamondbacks, on the other hand, as a stack, second worst odds of being the top stack. They are cheap, so you are getting some value, but 8% aggregate ownership, most of that going to the aforementioned Josh Rojas in the leadoff spot. This isn't really a stack. It's mostly just a lot of Rojas, particularly in cash scenarios. Are you trying to stack any Diamondbacks? Because that seems like a terrible idea. The better question is, what do you want to do with the Dodgers, who have a 20% chance of being the top stack, and they have similar ownership?
Yeah, I mean, not really looking to the Diamondbacks, especially with how ownership looks right now. Dustin May is not really getting it, so you're not leveraging against the field. You're just kind of making a suboptimal play against a good pitcher that gets a ton of ground balls. As far as the other side goes with the Dodgers, I think it's a spot where you want to pay attention to individual ownership in addition to the aggregate ownership, because my expectation is that you're going to get a lot of Dodger stacks that have some combination of the good hitters at the top, but then use guys at the bottom like Kike or Gavin Lux, or using the catcher spot on Will Smith to save some money. And so that gives you the opportunity to still be contrarian by maybe take a chance on like Alzolay, pair him with Paddock or Gray, save some money at pitcher, and then get all of Betts, Seager, Bellinger, and Muncy in your lineup or something like that. So that's one way you can kind of probably be contrarian within that stack. Not sure that's the best approach on this slate, but if you're going to the Dodgers, you can at least look to do something like that.
So many of these Dodgers bats look great today. I mean, they should. They are great, but to get like $5,700 Mookie Betts on this slate, 30% owned, $3,900 AJ Pollock, 33% owned. Both of those numbers look like exactly what they should be, as far as I'm concerned. It's hard to not like the Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree.
You really need to be cognizant of your entire lineup construction today. If you're getting to Cole plus one of the other chalky pitchers plus Dodgers, that is going to be a very prevalent build, and you need to be different somewhere. Any thoughts to like try to differentiate yourself in those scenarios?
Just what I was mentioning about, I expect a large percentage of the Dodgers lineups to have one of the cheaper guys towards the bottom of the order. So you can be different while also rostering the best hitters in the lineup. Obviously, you'll be sacrificing a pitcher and potentially one-offs if you do so. But I think that's one way you can do it. Other than that, this would be a spot where if you're stacking the Dodgers, maybe you go to Dustin May instead of Chris Paddock. It has positive correlation with your Dodger stack, but also just gives you a lower owned pivot off of Paddock.
Final thoughts on the slate?
Definitely a slate where I think ownership really is going to come into play, because you're just going to have you have a couple of pitchers that project much differently than the rest of the field. You have a couple of stacks that project much differently than the rest of the field. It's just a slate where I think keep in mind that it's baseball. By definition, by nature, a bunch of weird shit happens, and there's a ton of variance. Like it's a slate where there's a really good chance that when you look at the winning lineups at the end of the night, you're going to say, like, I would have felt really terribly clicking that into play.
That's baseball for you. Well, guys, 6 games up, 6 games down. Thank you for joining us. Keep your eye on the weather for that Yankees game. That's going to be really important. Hit the like button on the way out the door. Best of luck on this slate. I'm waiting for that lovely music from Jordan Klein, but